Okay, we'll go ahead and get started now. So welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We're here to go over the updates to Digital Factory version 11. We're releasing an update for 11.1. There's a lot of interesting features in this. There's a lot of good features. You'll see some new features regarding the UI, some new features regarding functionality. So it's a good opportunity to go through those right now together. This session will be recorded, and starting next week, you'll have a link to this recording sent to you, along with any other marketing materials or anything like that that you might need regarding this update. Not much in that regard is changing from what you may already have from 11 or just 11, sorry. But there is a few little things that will be new for this update, so we'll be able to send you those starting next week. My name is Vincent Hughes. I am the Digital Marketing Manager with Fiery Specialty Production, and we'll be joined today by Mike Tramchenko, the Head of New Business Development, Ted McCluskey, who is our color specialist and expert, and Chris Rennie, who is one of the main developers of this update. So without further ado, I will hand it over to Mike to go through some of the new updates.
Thanks very much, Vincent. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all of our participants from wherever you may be. We really appreciate you taking the time to spend about 60 minutes of your day. We know you're busy to learn more about our products and Digital Factory version 11.1 in particular. I promise not to waste your time. We will provide you with some really good, concise information on the 11.1 update release and show you some of the new features, how they work, what they do. Hopefully you'll be quite impressed with them. We're very, very proud of them and are anxious to release the product. So real quick agenda, we'll be going out the rollout overview and timing. We have two very special guests with us today, two very important people as far as Digital Factory is concerned, both on our development side. Ted McCluskey, who many of you may have encountered either on site or via webinars, who is our color specialist and is really responsible for driving all of the printer support that we currently are able to turn around so quickly in the various markets that we support, and even more importantly, create and help guide and manage the creation of all of the color profiles for them, which is no easy task, as many of you know. So Ted will go through a few of our quick features and provide you with an overview of them. We also have Christopher Rennie, who is one of our technical leads and a developer as well on the Digital Factory team. And he is responsible for what I actually think is one of the more exciting updates or changes, features, whatever you want to call it, we've had in Digital Factory in a few versions, and that is what we're calling a next-gen UI, which I'll get into in a few minutes. Then I will take the screen back and go over just some pricing policies, some product delivery policy changes that we're implementing, and then give you a quick overview of some of the sales and marketing resources that you've come to count on as a CADLink dealer and now a Fiery dealer that we will be providing, that Vincent and the team have been working on over the last 6 to 8 weeks to get ready for the release of this new product. And then we'll follow it with a Q&A. Vincent will be moderating, so if you do have any Q&A questions, we are saving time at the end of the session, 10-15 minutes for it, at least, maybe even 20. And you can either message them in the Q&A interface that's on the screen here, or you can simply ask them of us at the end of the session as well. All right. As we mentioned, this is not a full version release. We had our full version release of Digital Factory version 11 back in May. This is a dot release, and normally dot releases are fairly limited with more fixes and some modifications to existing features, but we've included a few very, very important new features in it as well. And so it is a dot release. but I think it's always good to spend a little bit of time. We're not going to go through the version 11 features in any kind of detail whatsoever, but I did want to put up on screen for your viewing pleasure some of the features that we went through back in May during our version 11 release, just so you don't forget about them. And for those customers who are not currently using version 11, the combination of the version 11 features plus the new .1 release features make it a very enticing, very worthwhile upgrade. We'll talk about pricing and how it's available and how existing customers can access it, all those details during this session as well. But please always remember that aside from the features we're talking about today, for those customers who aren't running version 11 currently, they also will benefit from more than just the features that I have here on this slide. But certainly these are some of the features that we've seen since the release of version 11 that have had the greatest feedback and the most use across the majority of our digital factory markets. Of course, with the highlight being the single pass underbase and highlight white, which is a very unique patent pending feature that is only available within Digital Factory. No other products provide it. Extremely useful, specifically in the direct-to-film market, but has other applications as well, but a real big game changer in the direct-to-film market as well. The rollout table, timetable for 11.1, we are actually been working on it quite diligently over the last few months. Our development team and QA department has basically completed all of the QA and any issues have been resolved that were part of the initial alpha and beta versions. They are now presently putting together in the very last stages all of the different package configurations and the accompanying license files, including the trial versions. And they are going to be delivered to us by end of day tomorrow internally. We always like to take the weekend and also a couple of extra days just to go through them ourselves. Of course, we wouldn't ship anything without installing it ourselves. So our teams outside of Q&A, our sales teams, our support teams, even our marketing teams, all install the product and play around with it. We'll be making it available on October 4th. And at that time, all of the marketing and communication activities will begin as well on the 4th. Vincent, who you met earlier, our digital marketing manager, handles all of our digital marketing and has been working on an outreach campaign that will include not only email blasts to our databases and other databases as well, but also social media posts on all our platforms as well. So you'll see a scheduled type of marketing campaign over the next 6 weeks following the release on October the 4th. As I mentioned, the 11.1 includes a few, aside from any type of fixes that are included in it, includes some very important, very valuable, very customer-facing, problem-solving types of features that we'll go through real quickly. We've made some adjustments to our automation features, particularly in the automatic job sorter area. I won't go into them because I don't want to steal Ted's thunder. As well as some color chart support for customers that are now creating their own color profiles, some color management, color measurement device support news as well. And Ted will go through those for us. And followed by Ted, we'll have Chris Rennie, who is the creator of our Next Gen UI, take you through kind of a high-level overview of the Next Gen UI and how cool it looks and how more streamlined our user interface, even simpler than it was before within our Digital Factory products is now. And then also a big money saver for users, True Shape Nesting, which is now directly included as part of Digital Factory contour cutting module. That enables people to nest products. As many of you know, we've had nesting before, but it was always block nesting. This is actually a true shape nesting tool that provides significant cost savings when it comes to media consumption. So without any further ado, I will pass it over to Ted, who will take you through the top 3 features, and then we'll jump over to Chris, and Chris will grab the screen from us and take you on a 15-minute ride through Digital Factory version 11.1. So go ahead, Ted.
Yeah. Okay. So the first three features are kind of new. I guess they're improvements, I guess, to stuff we already did. The first one is an improvement to AJS, Automatic Job Sorter. So if anybody's used that, or if you've already used it, you know it is the hot folder, e-commerce integration platform for handling automation for jobs. So if you have a customer who is running an e-commerce front-end store, and the person buys a shirt, maybe like a black Gildan 5000 shirt, and they buy that, and then from there is no software. You don't need to interact with the software. That image comes from the e-commerce software, moves through a few systems, and then ends up at the printer ready to print automatically. You don't have to think about which queue you're going to print in or which color settings you're going to use. So that's AJS. With its implementation, there's been a whole bunch of nitty-gritties or things that you can do to really customize that workflow. Some of them required for some e-commerce platforms to even work. They need, they have to have specific settings. So we designed AJS with that in mind, so that would work with pretty much everything out there. A lot of this was designed for DTG workflows, and we've made some improvements over the course of time. A lot of them focusing on direct-to-film workflows, which they're both going on T-shirts, both apparel, but the process of getting there is quite different for each one. So all that said, there's a couple new syntax or header files that and the way they work and how we support them. This in this particular case, this is something you can put into the file name itself, which is a control that AJS has supported for a while. Where if you want to modify how a job is handled, you can do it in the file name itself. And that is often how a lot of these e-commerce platforms output their files. It'll have, that Gildan 5000. Okay, well, that needs to go to the Gildan 5000 black shirt queue or whatever. Well, we can do quite a fair bit with that. And the new support is direct to film focused, which includes job ordering and job grouping. So this is a feature that lets you say, I have X number of jobs when it comes to direct to film. This would probably be X number of jobs for a customer. And I want those to group in potentially a specific order for this customer. And then after they're finished being grouped, I want the page to close and that to print. And I don't want to have to count out all these orders or anything every single time. I want this to happen automatically. So there's a few new controls for the file name, or the header file is how it's handled, that let you specify the number of jobs coming in and a customer ID, which would be, the customer number 72 has just placed an order for, 500 of this design, or however many designs you want. Doesn't need to be one design. And I want those to be processed in AJS, and then by AJS come into Digital Factory, and then finish the page and print them off. And that way, that sheet at the end can be rolled up and perhaps sent off to that user if there's just selling the transfers, or if you're going to print them on a shirt, kind of the sky's the limit. And you can also choose the order in which these jobs are processed in. And that's important, obviously, for having the order for these customers specifically, so they're processed kind of in the same place, or they're grouped in the same area if that sheet is going to be cut and sent off. So the improvement to AJS is job ordering via the file name and grouping, and the customer ID kind of all goes in together. There will be an updated document included, or it's kind of like a revision to the previous one that exists for AJS on how this works and what you need to do. That will be going out, or if you want to use these features, it'll be accessible. The next one, this is an improvement to PMC, or print mode calibrator. We previously did not support. We supported CMYK plus up to 3 spot colors officially. There were some, not the nicest ways, or kind of I don't want to call it hacks, but ways of getting a fourth color to work. But we now officially support 4-color charts in the full version of PMC. So you can do CMYK plus red, green, orange, blue, or if you want to build some fluorescent colors into your process space, whatever you might be doing, up to 4 spot colors. And as part of this, we also fixed a few bugs that were present with using our automatic white underbase generation in the PMC process. It was something that existed that has all been corrected. So CMYK plus 4, and it's also smoothed out the process of doing those profiles even in the first place. And then last, but certainly not least, we support the new NIX device, the NIX Mini 3, which looks very similar to the old one, but on the inside, it's actually quite a fair bit different, primarily in how it's installed and kind of plugged in. Previously, the NIX Mini 2 is a COM port driver, which is a little bit finicky to get working sometimes, depending on your version of Windows and depending on is it a laptop, is it a PC, what is it, or laptop is it a desktop. There was a few challenges that sometimes were a little bit annoying to deal with. In Digital Factory, there was a way to install that driver manually. With the NIX Mini 3, this is not the case anymore. You just plug it into your computer, and what is needed for that to work is available now. So NIX Mini 3 support, fantastic device for calibration, and now we support their newest one, which is what they're shipping and what they're selling. And that's really it on my end. Mike, I don't know if you want to say a few words before we get into the cool stuff, which Chris is going to do.
It's all cool, Ted. The color stuff is super cool. So,
but the other one, okay, the new stuff looks cooler though.
It does. The next gen UI is really quite spectacular. I don't want to oversell it, but it is really cool. I think, the automatic job sorter enhancements is further extending really the requirement for within all of our markets that we service in Digital Factory, including direct-to-film, automation requests and the need to automate the workflows and the process more and more. And so really, when you look at Digital Factory as a whole, in terms of the additions within the 11.0 release in May and 11.1, including barcode support, including e-commerce platform support, automatic job management and processing tools. Really, we are one of the, if not, I won't sell ourselves short. We are the leader in the industry in terms of automation within all of these personalization and customization print production spaces. So that is super cool. And then obviously, without being able to achieve proper color, you can have all of the workflow tools you want, but at the end of the day, you need to provide high quality prints in the simplest way and in the most consistent way. And all of our print mode calibration tools that we create have been simplified using wizards. We now support, color measurement devices that aren't professionally priced high-end color measurement devices. They're professional devices that are priced more entry level, and that is a perfect area where the NIX minis fall in. I know that in North America you can purchase them for under $100 US. They are super easy to use, and they provide just tremendous calibration results and color profiling results in a very, very simplified fashion. And so, you no longer need to be extremely wealthy or color management rock star in order to create good profiles in the direct-to-film space or the direct-to-garment space. These types of devices combined with our print mode creation make this really simple. So from an automation perspective and a color management perspective, Digital Factory is really leading the way at the moment. So without any further ado, again, I will pass it over to Chris Rennie, who's going to show you the next gen UI and also the money-saving true shape nesting tool as well that's included as part of 11.1. Go ahead, Chris.
Thanks, Mike. I'll grab the screen right now and start showing you guys the next gen UI. So this is our next gen UI mode. I'll be going over some of the new things you'll find in it, things that are different from the old one, but for the most part, it is a one-to-one feature discrepancy. So there is no features in the old UI that you won't find in this, and there's no features in this that you won't find in the old UI. Starting with the new menu items, under View, there's a UI mode flyout. We have Next Gen and Classic. If you click Classic here, you'll be prompted to restart the application, and when you do, it'll pop up just like it looked before, the queue you're all used to at this point. But this is what Next Gen UI looks like. The other menu is Theme. There's Dark Theme and Light Theme. Right now, for the purposes of the demo, I have Dark Theme running, and that is our default. But if I was to switch to Light Theme, it would look something like this. So users can choose which of the two they like better. There's a new layout menu option that has a few new items in it. One is restore to default layout. I'll go over that a bit more later. The other things you'll see here, which are all enabled at the moment, are the different panes around the product for different controls. There's toolbar, queue tabs, job reserve list, preview area, and the smart bar. Any of these controls can be toggled on and off in the new UI. To the point where the only control that can't be toggled off is the active job list. And if you go reset store to default layout, it'll bring everything back. The toolbar works exactly the same as before. All the toolbar items are the same as well. The queue tabs work like before. Select a queue, it'll change your queue. The job list, you'll notice first off that all of the items in the job list are quite a bit bigger than they were before. That's so the user can get a better idea of the previews. They're also a higher quality preview than they were in the old UI mode. However, if the user wants to change the size of these previews, they can do so here from the settings menu in the job list. Here you can change the preview size from probably way too big to the smallest it can possibly be, to the point where it gets rid of the previews just to fit it in pure text form. This is akin to what it was like before, the first step up from that. And this size is our new shipping default, where they're just big enough to see and get a good idea of what each job is without taking up too much space. In the preview area, all the controls you see here are the same as before, with the exception of these two buttons, which have replaced the print and cut preview combo. We used to have a combo box here that lets you choose show print preview, show cut preview, or show print and cut preview. Now the print and cut previews are just toggled on and off by toggling the print, or toggling the cut, or toggling both. The smart bar is probably the biggest difference between our old product. You'll see that it's vertically laid out here. That can be changed as well. I'll go over that soon. But this is the queue context for our smart bar. We had issues before where some people were getting confused about what the queue context meant. So we moved a lot of the varying controls from this context over to here. If you click on the ... next to this queue tab, or if you right click on the tab, you'll get this queue import defaults pop up. This lets you change everything you could from the old queue tab, including print mode, print media, and layout. And now the user has immediate access to every printer option, so they can change whichever option they want to fit their use, and any job that comes in after they change the option will have that option set. The big change here is the import defaults wording to better get across that it is only for jobs that are coming in after the change is made and not for jobs currently in the queue. So that is the biggest change. Other than that, the smart bar mostly works as it did before. It has all the controls in it. When you select something, you can see the preview of it. If I go restore job, it'll restore the job to what it was like on import. I can make any modification and it'll reflect in the smart bar. Have the whole size and position controls, the options, and if I were to add copies here, it has to be a bit smaller. If I were to add copies here, you can see that it'll add the copy controls below everything else when they're required. And if I was to remove copies, it gets rid of the copy controls. You can also, our layout is now adjustable. If I it's like before, where you can still resize the preview area versus the job list. You can pick how big you want the job lists to be. But now you can also right-click between panes, and you'll get a small pop-up window that lets you rotate or swap the panes. If I swap these two panes, you'll see that the reserve list is now above the active list. And if I rotate them, you can see that the active list is now split vertically as opposed to horizontally. It's probably going to get a lot of people using it here, where you can now rotate these panes and make the smart bar look like it did before, in the same place it was before, if people prefer that. But if you've modified it in a bunch of ways and you want to just revert back to the way it was at default, restore to default layout does that too. Other than that, the key works exactly the same way it has before. And as far as the UI update goes, it's only on the main page. All of the sub windows are still the way you remember them. Queue properties, queue manager, device manager, all of that still works and looks the same. So moving on to shape nesting now. Here is I've set up a demo to show what shape nesting can do a bit beforehand. So here you can see this is a series of 12 files, and these are them block nested on a 14-inch roll, block nested as close as they can to save the most media you can with block nesting. And you can see that it's about 3 1/4-ish inches long, a little bit less. Taking these shapes and using our new shape nesting system with the highest rotation possible, or the lowest rotation possible, you can see that now all of these shapes can fit in a 2-inch space. So that's a savings of roughly 50% of the media. And here's another example just to show how dynamic it can get. This is a shape nested onto a 10-inch width. And it's still less than the block nesting on the 14-inch. So in order for the customer to do this, it's simple. If the cut already has a clipping path around it, such as these PDF imported files, all I have to do is import them, right-click on the page that all of the jobs are on, or the roll, and go replace jobs with nested PDF. They'll then take all the jobs, start ripping them, and at some point you'll be prompted for a nesting width and height. That width and height will default to the current media in the queue. If it's a roll, the width will default to the current width, and the height will default to something sufficiently large that it's unlikely to be used. I think in this case, it's going to default to 1,800 inches or something. And it will try to save the most vertical space it can in order to save the user the most media it can. I'll just let this finish. So here's the pop-up I was talking about. The page width here is by default the width of the roll, and it is in fact 1,800 inches. If I click OK here, it'll start shape nesting, and I'll let it process that while we're looking at the other feature shape nesting can do, which is copy fill. So this is a job I've imported. It's a PNG job, and I've used our contour cut system to apply a path around it. And if I take this job, which is here, I right-click on it, and I go to our shape nesting fill page with copies. This is a page media, so it will fill the page with copies of this job. There's a few options here. This is an example of filling the page with copies of the job with no rotation allowed. This is the fastest way of processing the shape nesting. And you can see here that it's just this alone with no rotation allowance has gotten the user quite a few more than they would be able to fit with block nesting. But if we allow rotation allowance, we can get something like this, which is about 30 to 40% more jobs on the page than they could have fit otherwise. And this is just, it's just filled the page in the sheet queue. And yeah, so this is one way where they can get the most out of every piece of media, especially if the media is expensive. Going back here, you can see that it has nested these gens and to look exactly the same as this, and they've gone from about 3.2 inches to 1.96 inches. And I think that about wraps it up.
Thank you very, very much, Chris. I'm going to grab the screen back here just for a second. There we go. So yeah, so the takeaway really, I mean, if we're looking at the next gen UI that we've implemented in version 11.1, there are really two takeaways here. One is obviously the aesthetic component of it. You know, for years, based on feedback that we've had from our stakeholders, our dealers, our manufacturing partners, our customers, we were always known as doing very well in terms of thought leadership, in terms of adding additional features and being very new with a lot of features that solve a lot of customer problems. But our user interface always hadn't changed in quite a few years, and it looked a little bit, I don't like using the word stale, but I'm going to use the word stale and say it looked a little bit dated, if you will. And the user interface didn't really keep up. We felt that it didn't keep up with actually the level of technology, and it didn't represent the newness of the level of technology that we had within our software. So it was a really big deal for us. It was a huge project. Chris worked a long time on this to get it right. Many people were consulted in terms of the look and feel and how it should be used. So now we all know that, you know, first impressions mean a lot. So when new customers pop open our software for the first time now in trial versions, the look and feel of the software now really represents all the latest technology that's included with it. So it's consistent between the technology and the aesthetic of the software. And so we thought that really made a big difference. The real nice part about it as well, as Chris pointed out, is that you're able to customize the look and feel so it works best in whatever workflow and whatever display you prefer. So that makes it a lot easier. It makes people more efficient. And again, there are a lot of different options. So if you are sharing workstations amongst many people, you're always able to revert to other types of layouts and themes if you'd like. But the next gen UI, the aesthetic part of it is really, really big, we feel, and kind of matches up now with the technology we have in the software. The other part to the next gen UI is really the streamlined capabilities and the more intuitive type of grouping that Chris has accomplished, again, based on feedback from the field on how certain tools are grouped within the smart bar, what tools are actually shown. So we have a great deal of tools. There are no sense in showing the tools that aren't applicable to a particular process that you're participating in at that time. So a lot of the tools don't need to be displayed. So now they hide, they appear as relevant as they are relevant, depending on what people are trying to accomplish in the workflow. So that's really the two big takeaways from the next gen UI is, you know, more intuitive, and also from an aesthetic standpoint, a lot more customizable, more user friendly, if you will. The true shape nesting, I saw a few people clapped on that one. Obviously, as I said earlier, we've always had the block nesting, or for quite some time, we've had the block nesting in the software. But when we're getting into high volume production, we never actually had true shape nesting as part of an option within Digital Factory. It was a big request from, again, many of our users. And so we're really happy to have that as part of it. And as Chris showed, I mean, the cost savings alone just from media usage are enormous. I mean, anywhere from, you know, a minimum of a 30% difference in terms of nesting, upwards of, you know, 70-75% savings in terms of media, depending obviously on the number of jobs, the shape of the jobs, etc. But I don't think it's overstating it that the media savings are substantial, and obviously, if you're doing high volume and you do require nesting, pay for themselves pretty much almost immediately. So I just want to move on to some additional information. As I mentioned, this is a dot release, so really There's not too many changes taking place on the commercial side of the business. We advertised back in May when we released 11.0 that anyone upgrading to 11.0 will automatically receive the 11.1 update as well as a no-charge update. It's an automatic update using our updater system within the software. It's seamless, no uninstall, reinstall required, no tech support calls. Well, hardly any tech support calls. I'm assuming maybe from some users that are really not that adept at using the software may call, but generally speaking, it's designed so that it is seamless, very easy for as many of our users as possible. I think Chris mentioned it during his part of the presentation, but not to worry about the next gen UI upsetting customers who are slow to move off of what they already have and what they like. If they've got 11.0 and they're using our classic user interface, updating the software will not change their layout and design of their software. Very important to remember. It's going to stay exactly the same. We didn't want it to interfere at all in the production on a Monday morning when someone comes in and fires up their software and it automatically updates. Then all of a sudden they've got this brand new looking package on there that really messes them up. So that's going to stay the same. Following the install, there will be a dialog box that pops up that will advise the customers that they can visit a web page that will educate them on the different UI options that are now available, and they can pick and choose whether or not they want to remain in classic mode, whether or not they want to update to the 11.1 new UI, and also they're able to pick whether or not they want light themes, dark themes. There's a lot of variety in that area as well, but we are not going to be intrusive with the customers and force them to change into that UI. New packages as well as trial versions will have the default setting. The one that Chris showed, actually, it will be the dark theme with that initial layout default that Chris showed before he started playing around with it and showing all the different options. So that will be the default setting on the new packages going out the door, as well as the trial versions. As far as upgrade pricing is concerned, I mentioned, from legacy Digital Factory packages, so version 10, customers that are on version 10, the version 11 upgrade pricing is exactly the same. It hasn't changed. So anyone going from 10 to 11, all your price lists are still up to date. You don't have to change them. The upgrade pricing has not changed, so it will remain exactly the same. We do have a few delivery policy changes, just two. We're keeping it pretty simple in conjunction with this release. 11.1, as you know, in the past, many of you may know, some of you may not know, the direct-to-film edition, the wide format edition, actually included a model that supported add-on drivers. So not all of the drivers that were in the wide format category were included. And when placing orders, in many cases, dealers would have to specify what drivers they'd like added to that particular package. And our order processing people would then create those license files according to the packages or according to the drivers that have been requested. That was very scalable in the early days of direct-to-film, in particular, when we only had a few dozen drivers. But as many of you know, we literally support hundreds of printers now. We support virtually all direct-to-film, all widely used direct-to-film printers available today. And it's just not scalable anymore. So in order to avoid order placing errors, order processing errors, which do occur, and licensing errors, I should say, which always result in a tech support call, either to you or to us, we've decided to include all the non-OEM drivers within that wide format product. So much more simplified delivery of the product. The desktop edition, there is no impact whatsoever because all drivers were included in that edition from the beginning. So it really only impacts the wider format, but no longer will you need to specify what drivers on your POs, what drivers need to be included in the product. They're all going to be included as part of the wide format product, and that's going to take place as of Monday. The other policy that many of you have known about for a while that we've been slowly filtering in over the summer and are now making it fully effective as of October 1st, Monday as well, is the elimination of our dongle security-based products, our hard-ship dongle security-based products. This is something that many software companies have implemented already for quite a few years. Time for CADLink / now Fiery to be more of a green product and a more efficient delivery product. So we are getting rid of our dongle delivery for all our brand products, and they will now be all available and provided and distributed via digital download and activation codes. I've noticed over our sales over the past few months that both in North America and rest of world, there's been a strong adoption of the activation code anyway. So for many of you, it'll be no change. For those of you who are still stuck on dongles and selling dongles, you'll have to adapt to the new activation codes. But again, I mean, the benefits are just too obvious to ignore. Simplifies order placement. Customers get instant delivery of products. If they're in some far off geographic location in the world, they don't have to wait 2 weeks to get their dongle shipped to them. I'm exaggerating slightly, but nevertheless, you get the picture. They're able to download a trial version, have an activation code emailed to them, and they're up and running immediately. Also, from a dealer perspective, no need to pay on shipping charges and also stock hard copy inventory of packages any longer. You can simply order activation codes. If you do want an inventory of activation codes, it's one email that is sent to you and you have all your activation codes instant, and it'll reduce costs and simplify your inventory management as well. As always, our marketing team is hard at work providing a variety of different materials for your sales and support efforts. They've been working for the last few months on this, and I'm not going to go through the whole list, but as you can see, our release notes are available. Everything is coming together this week. We're going to start rolling it out, as I mentioned earlier, on next week on Wednesday. And Vincent Hughes, who you met, will be managing a digital media campaign that's going to run approximately 6 weeks, a scheduled campaign that will be promoting Digital Factory version 11.1 on all our social platforms. We'd be very happy and would appreciate if you share those as you see them. If you're not currently following CADLink Fiery, Vincent, you can jump in afterwards and let people know what the new labeling or branding is of our social platforms post acquisition here as part of Fiery. But if you don't currently follow us on social media, please do so. And by all means, share them on your own social platforms as well. All the content is very solid. There'll be some really good videos that have been created on the new UI, on some nesting, a variety of others as well. So the content is never ending, almost never ending, and also very available to you via social platforms or reaching out to your SDMs or to Vincent directly in our marketing group. And they will be providing you with anything that you need for your own website content, email blast content. And as many of you know who take advantage of that service that we offer, are usually turned around very quickly. So that's pretty much it in terms of the presentation. We wanted to leave approximately 10-15 minutes for Q&A, which we've done. So by all means, if you have any questions, if you have any commercial questions, I'd be happy to answer them. And both Chris and Ted and Vincent are still here to answer either technical or marketing related questions as well. So by all means, please feel free to ask any questions that we may have not already addressed.
For sure. There's a couple that have come in already through the Q&A section on the meeting. And like Mike said, if you had any more, just drop them in there now, and we'll take this time to go through them. If you miss anything or if we run out of time, this meeting will be recorded, and there will be a link to this meeting go out next week, as well as some of those other resources that Mike had mentioned. So we'll get started with some of the questions that appeared in the Q&A during the presentation. The first one was, the CMS module is included in 11.1, the update.
if we're talking about does print mode calibration come with 11.1 for free? No, it's an add-on. You have to buy it. There's two versions of it. Like when you say CMS though, that's color management system module. That's not quite the same thing as what like CMS is something different. But if you mean PMC, which is the calibration module, that's not included. That's something you have to buy, and there's two versions. There's a light version and a full version, and they have a few different things in which they support.
Yeah, you'll be able to see if you visit our website or refer back to one of the price lists you have, you'll see that both we call them PMC Lite and PMC, as Ted said, print mode calibration or print mode creation, and they're both available as add-ons to Digital Factory version 11.1, as they were with 11 as well.
Another question that came in regarding shape nesting. Does it work with images with no contour cut path?
I can answer this one. So shape nesting doesn't work with images with no path, but it is shipped with our contour cut module, and our contour cut module lets you add a clipping path to any object. So if a PNG or rasterized image comes in, you can easily add a contour cut to it, and you can also set up the queue to automatically add contour cuts to any rasterized data job that comes in, such that they'll be shape nesting ready as soon as they're loaded into the queue.
So actually that touches on a question that we didn't get in the Q&A this time, but we've had a couple times before. And that's with the new true shape nesting, can you also configure that to automatically apply to any kind of incoming job?
Currently with the shape nesting, it doesn't automatically apply to incoming jobs. You take a batch of jobs and trigger shape nesting for all of those jobs specifically. That's because the shape nesting process itself could take some time. So if it automatically happened and updated your media for every incoming job, it would slow the queue down a lot. So, but it's fairly easy to use. You just wait for enough jobs to come in to fit your target, and then you press shape nesting, and it'll shape nest them all at once.
Okay. Another question we had in the Q&A was, I have the dongle for demo and support. I'd like to know if I can download and use 11.1 with this dongle.
So 11.1, no. 11.1 will be activation code only. So you'll need to reach out to your sales development manager, depending on where you're located, and they will set you up and provide you with the options on how you can have your demo model that is dongleless.
Another question that we had previously was that, is Digital Factory going to replace the VPM that appears in SignLab, this version of Digital Factory?
SignLab, there is a roadmap right now for SignLab 11. I'm not the product manager for it, so I can't speak to the exact date. I know that right now it's tentatively scheduled for the end of this year. And at that point, my assumption is that the VPM version on it will be updated to match the same queue that is provided as part of Digital Factory. That one, though, just to be certain that I'm not giving you incorrect information, I would just verify what I just said with your sales development manager. But I am fairly certain that the next version of SignLab Print and Cut will also include the latest version of the printing queue as well.
Okay. So if there's any other questions, drop them into the Q&A. Give it just another minute here and see. But like I said, if not, this will all be recorded and you'll be getting access to this recording and links starting next week.
One of the things I didn't mention, Vincent, and maybe I don't know if you did earlier, but with the release of version 11.0, we did have a digital dealer kit that we did send out that had feature alerts that include all the high-level description of the features. We got some great feedback on that. It was the first time that we ever rolled something out. It was basically a document that included the feature, what it accomplishes, what the benefits are, as well as a link to an associated video or videos to it. And so Vincent will be releasing a digital dealer kit as well that you will all have access to, that will give you any of that type of content that's related to the new release.
Another question came in specifically for direct to film. How can the new true shape nesting be used for DTF?
Chris, do you want to touch on that, or Ted, or do you want me?
Yeah, I mean,
Ted could do that.
Yeah, I feel like how can it be used for direct to film? There are obviously a few things you have to consider with true shape nesting. Obviously, the biggest advantage is you're saving film, so you're not going to use as much film. That's certainly the money saver. When you're creating the design, or when you're doing the shape nesting, you need to leave a bit of space in between designs. You don't want them to be a millimeter apart, because you're not going to be able to cut them out accurately. But you can do that with the true shape nesting. You can define your parameters for the setup. So the benefit is obviously just in media saving, or that's the most obvious benefit. And you just have to consider what you're doing with the film and the workflow. And Chris, if you want to add anything to that, by all means. But I think
Sure.
that's yeah.
I can add a few things. Well, in the DTF market, cutting is becoming a lot more common. We support all the tools one needs to use cutting on a DTF workflow, including white around registration marks. And with our new gunner support, we have a solution where users can print a whole roll of DTF, transfer them over to a cutter, and start an automated cutting process on those. Obviously, with that though, any rasterized job that comes in will need to have cut data around it. So while this might not be specifically true shape nesting, our automated contour cut feature is something fantastic for that kind of DTF work, because you can specify the amount of inward inset or offset you want for that cut to be applied around that job. And not to mention, one of the few limiting factors for the lower end DTF devices are the speed at which they print. And shape nesting can allow them to have less vertical height in the print, which is generally the factor that causes the print to take longer. So the prints can come out faster too, using shape nesting.
And just to add to that, our contour cutting module, Chris mentioned gunner support, but as many of you know who have a history with CADLink, now Fiery, one of our original specialties was cutting. We support virtually every single cutter you can imagine on the market. So it is not just that, but all of the Graphtechs and Sumas and a variety of different cutters, we support them all. So if you do have a print and cut workflow with a specific cut device, there's a very good chance that we do support it.
One final question here that came in was regarding true shape nesting. Is it possible to change the distance between the images?
Absolutely. There's a few options you can have. I'll actually grab the screen again just for a moment to show you.
Yeah.
If I go to Q Properties, there's a new page in Q Properties called Shape Nesting. And here you can see all the options. Top option, allow job rotation. So like I said before, you can disable this, so you can leave it at the original orientation if you prefer. You can also enable it and choose between a variety of degrees. The reason we let you choose is because the lower the angle you're allowed for increments, the longer it usually takes to process the best result. And if you're processing upwards of 200 to 300 jobs, sometimes 5 degrees is just a little bit too slow. So we default to 45, which is also usually what gives you more than good enough results and still saves you plenty of space. The other thing you can do is nesting direction. I imagine 99% of users will stick with the horizontal nesting, but you can prioritize nesting down a roll as opposed to across it. What you were asking is space between objects. You can specify any number of inches or millimeters or centimeters between the objects, and it will respect that when it goes to do the shape nesting. You can also specify fixed page size, so that dialog you saw that prompted me for width and height, that dialog will be skipped and it will use the values defined in here. So if I was to define these as a 10-inch or whatever the maximum is for this queue, so I'm using letter here, so the maximum would be roughly 8.5 by 11. And instead of asking me for the height, it would use these dimensions every time.
Great. Thanks very much, Chris.
No problem.
Okay, I think that's everything for now for Q&A. So thank you all for attending this session. Hope that you're as excited as we are about 11.1 and are looking forward to starting using it next week.
Thank you very much, everybody, for your time. We're giving you back 2 minutes of your day, so thank you very much. We're on time, and we really appreciate the time you spend with us. Thank you so much.
Take care.
Thanks for coming.